Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris from MediaFreshPress.com. I'm here with Nathaniel Brennis from OneMoreCupOfCoffee.com, and we're going to do a show this week about duplicate content. This show is called Fresh Plus Coffee. I'm the fresh, Nathaniel brings the coffee. And like I said, we're going to talk about duplicate content and try to figure out what actually makes duplicate content, what makes it so scary, what makes it not so scary. So hopefully we can get to the bottom of this and figure it out so everybody can work on their websites appropriately.
Yep.
uh,
Sorry, it was a good introduction. I didn't really have
I killed
much
it.
to add to
that. We're talking about this because it's been coming up, a lot in the fresh coffee community. I think this is a question that people have, and this is not like a newbie type of question. I mean, it is to a point, but even a lot of experienced bloggers and even experienced SEOs battle with this problem of duplicate content. And the real problem is for beginners is that you really don't know what makes duplicate content. You don't know. I mean, there's a lot of myths around it, like the duplicate content penalty, which is, that's not even true. You don't get penalized for duplicate content. You may not get the rankings you want, but so it's stuff like that. There's a lot of myths surrounding this topic that can make you run around like a chicken with your head cut off for no real reason.
Yeah, I think one of the other problems is that a lot of people look at duplicate content as kind of an easy solution to writing content, because sometimes writing content sucks, and they're like, well, it'd be a lot easier if someone could do it for me for free, and then I can just put that on my website. So I think it's kind of a danger zone for newbies to get into, because you can screw up your site with duplicate content and doing things wrong. But you're also right that maybe it's not as bad as some people might think.
Yep. There was a question in WA the other day. I can't remember her name, but she had, I can't remember if it was a poetry thing or no, it was a quotes. She had this website where she did a lot of quotes. She took quotes from famous people, and she was really worried about duplicate content. And, so I did some digging around before I answered her because, like I said, there's a lot of, misconceptions around this. But, stuff like that is totally different. I mean, it can be duplicate content, but it's a different kind of duplicate content from what you were just talking about, where people, just go out and maliciously steal somebody else's article and post it on their website. There was a link you posted in the community where Matt Cut said I can't remember what it said now. There's like hundreds of thousands of pages of duplicate content or something.
Right. I think he said something like 25% of the internet is duplicate content.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That look of surprise kind of scared me. Maybe it wasn't 25%.
It was something outrageous, though.
It was a large percentage.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to kind of confess here is that so a while back, I think her name was Sharon, I can't remember, Ho Chi Minh Cities, who was kind of talking with us in the community about duplicate content. She has like 200 stories that she published somewhere else that she now wants to publish her blog. And originally she posted in WA, or she asked the question, can she bring that content over to her website? And my kind of catch-all answer was, don't do it, because you're going to hurt your site. And then, to be fair, I guess I got caught. Like 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm posting in Fresh Coffee community like, yeah, I'm bringing content from one of my blogs over to the other blog, and we're going to see what happens. And she caught it, and she was like, I thought you told me to not bring my content over. So the truth is I don't really know. It's an easy answer to tell someone if they want to copy content from another site to not do it. Um, and I think it steers people in the right direction. But I guess the true answer, one, is that I don't know 100% what you should do, but also that there seems to be a correct way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that really kind of sums up the whole thing is that I really don't think anybody knows 100% because it's a different answer for each individual situation. Depending on, like I said, the type of content you're trying to duplicate or whatever. But I still think that the safest answer is to not do it. Because it's a lot of work as we're getting ready to discuss. Maybe not a lot of work, but it's more than it's not as simple as just writing another article. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I still think that the safest bet is, especially if you're talking about content you've written on another site and now it's not doing anything there, or you're getting ready to let the site go, or whatever the case may be. You want to move it to a new site. Um, I think the safest answer is to not do that, is to just rewrite it. But with this case study site, this is where I kind of started looking into this, because this case study site is on a similar topic to what Media Fresh Press is, and I wanted to know, like, if this thing tanks, which chances are that it will, because I'm trying to do all kinds of dumb stuff to it. You know what I mean? I'm really trying to break it down. So can I take this content over? And that's where I started looking into all this, and I kind of really gave up on looking into it. I came to the assumption that it's safest not to do that, and then you brought it up again, and we started digging into canonical URLs and redirects and all that stuff. So I'm glad we did.
The canonical URL thing, I swear, it pissed me off for a long time because people kept talking about canonical URLs, and I didn't know what that meant. I don't know why they have to call them canonical URLs. Like, all it means is it's the original content. It's basically a way to tell Google where the original content is published, and I don't know. That's it. I think it's much easier to understand it that way.
Yeah, it seems like a like a big word for something. They could just be like original content tag.
Right. Maybe in the coding world, canonical is like a common phrase that they use or something. I don't know.
It's funny that you say that, because way back when I first started hearing about this thing, I actually asked my brother if he knew anything about it, and he doesn't know anything about SEO or anything like that. But he told me that, it's like, oh, canonical, well, that just means that there's copies or something about copies of something. And I was like, oh. So I think it does have something to do with programming or whatever, coding or whatever you want to call it.
I see. So it's my own lack of understanding that was causing my frustration.
Oh, I've never heard of that. I mean, canonical, you can't even hardly say it. Most people can't even spell it right. I have to use the spell checker every time I write it. So it's like, it's not a common thing. You know what I mean? Going through the notes here. But yeah, it's a problem.
Okay, so the first thing that I kind of figured out on my path to understanding what this was is that there on your blog, on WordPress blogs, I don't know about other types of content management stuff, but on WordPress blogs there is already duplicate content on your blog. When you create tags and categories and your blog role, it's creating another page on your blog with the same content. So if I have a post called One More Cup of Coffee, and that is in the category 1, I'm going to have the post that's called onemorecupofcoffee.com/one more cup of coffee. That's the URL. Then on my home page, where I have my blog role, I'm going to have an excerpt from that post, or if I have the full page, that's going to be, so that's already another copy. Then in the category where it's category 1, I'm going to have that same post on that category. Then if I have a tag or 2 tags, it's also going to be on all those tags. So there's at least 5 or 6 copies that are on there. I don't know how much WordPress handles by itself, but I'm pretty sure that SEO plugins, part of what they do is to manage those duplicate copies. Is that right?
Yeah, and this is the part that I haven't really figured out 100% either, but basically what it comes down to is that WordPress, on its own learned or, was programmed to manage this properly after a while, because it wasn't too long ago that this was a big problem for WordPress users. So it was either that or Google learned that when they visit a WordPress website and probably any content management system that there's going to be different URLs. So, but yeah, and I think now, especially with All-in-One in their new release, they do ask you right there in the general settings, do you want to implement? Let me make sure what it says. Do you want to implement canonicalization across your entire site? So, I'm guessing that that's a way for them to handle it, which is probably the best idea, to have your SEO plugin handle it, I guess.
And that's checked by default, right?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had a funny thing happen to one of my sites once. When I got hit with a penguin, I think was the first one. I got hit with a penguin penalty. A bunch of my posts were basically de-indexed, or they were past page 20 or something. I don't know. They weren't being indexed properly or all the way across how they used to be. I used to rank on page 1, spot 1, 2, and 3, and then they were suddenly gone. But after some time, the tags and categories were getting ranked for whatever my keyword was. Mm-hmm. When I got started, I didn't really understand how everything went together, and so I just had a massive amount of categories and tags. So I had all kinds of categories and tags with good keywords in them, and I wasn't getting awesome rankings for them, but like page 1 and 2 rankings for the tags and categories. And I wonder if that was because Google de-indexed the page, but then was indexing the tag as the original content somehow.
I think that is a possibility. I'm pretty sure I've heard of that happening before, and it also could be that the tag or category that you're using, whatever the tag name was, maybe it was like a really good keyword, and I think the tag and categories go ahead of the URL, so that probably put a really good keyword in front of your page title, and then Google was faced with which one do I index, so they dropped the one that didn't have a good keyword rich domain or URL. That's what it sounds like. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like.
Because I never linked. Part of the penguin thing was, I think that wasn't the quality content one. That was, anyway, I was using those blog networks, but they were linking to my pages, so the ones with the bad backlinks got de-indexed, and the tags and categories didn't have any links to them. So, but they had the same content.
Yeah, it could be a combination of all that too, That was at a time too, it sounds like, when like exact match domains and stuff were still working really well, so it could have been just a big fluctuation that really made it work out. One thing I was thinking about when you said that, though, was we're talking about when you add a category and tags, and it creates a different URL for the same page or for the same content. Another thing that I didn't realize is that, like, capitalized letters in a URL, that can actually be another form of duplicate content. So
really?
if I've got MediaFreshPress.com/SEO all in caps, it's actually a different URL, I guess, than all lowercase.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. So I just read that on Moz recently, and Um, so I think that, like for WordPress, I think that that's part of your what is that? Your what do they call that there? Your permalinks. I think that's part of setting your permalinks up. It makes everything um, automatically lowercase. Either that or the SEO plugin does it. But just remember, if you're creating a URL, because you can change your URLs, but you probably want to be sure and not do it. um, and I guess that kind of goes into this other thing where everybody freaks out about having duplicate content and stuff. And Google understands a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah, from watching that Matt Cutts video, and I read a bunch of posts on it, and there's like post after post after post on different websites saying you don't get penalized for duplicate content unless it's spammy. Now they don't say what counts as spammy. I guess Google's probably pretty good at seeing what natural language is and seeing, like keyword stuffing would be a big sign. I guess they can detect grammar, like Microsoft Word can make grammar corrections for you. So I'm sure Google has some sort of detector to see how good your grammar is. Anyway, if there's spam signs and it's duplicate content, that can get you a penalty. But apparently just having duplicate content alone, especially, I want to say especially for your own website, that it's not going to hurt you. And then from what I understand, now part of me doesn't really want to believe it, but part of having content from other websites is also not going to hurt you. Even if it sounds like even if you don't have the proper notation, you don't have your canonical URL in
there. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing too, and that bugs me too, because I just don't see how that's okay. That bugs me a lot. I just don't see how it's okay. But like with the recipes and stuff like that, I can see that. But like if I took my article that's already been published on my blog and put it on your blog, it seems like one of us would have a problem. Probably you, because you're the newest piece or the newest published content. But I hear the same thing. I don't believe it either.
Well, as much smack as I've talked about curating content, I think one of the legit ways to copy content from another blog is to curate it. Obviously you need to do it right and have give people credit where credit is due. But I think you can. I think you can. What I was going to say is I think you can do it without the proper notation, without giving people credit, and still not get your site penalized. You may get yourself in trouble with that person because they can then put a DMCA notice on you, and they can get that page or I don't know if your entire site, but I know they can get that page removed because I've done it to other people who've copied my stuff. Yeah. So I think you can do it to your site without getting penalized, but you're going to run into other trouble. So obviously, if you do it, you want to try to do it right.
Yeah, and like the curating thing, I mean, we've talked to people before in the community that their whole website is based on curating other people's content. And I mean, when you go to their website, it's just where they've grabbed somebody's content. But I mean, I'm sure they have this specific situation. I'm sure they had something set up, the canonical URL or whatever, and they did give credit in the piece of curated content. But it just seems like a big problem, man.
I think it's I think it's a volume thing. Like, if your whole website is taking content from other websites, there needs to be a reason for someone to go to your site instead of someone else's site. If you have a 1,000-word post and 750 words are from someone else's website, I don't think it's going to get ranked very well, and I don't think there's a lot of reason for someone to go to your website and to go back to it. Now, if you have a 2,000 word article and 500 words are taken from another website, and another 1,500 words are your own commenting on what that website says, then there's reason, there's your own voice in there.
Yeah, and I read that in the Webmaster Tools or the Google Webmaster blog or whatever they call it, and that's where the lady in WA had asked me about her quotes, her recipes thing or whatever, and I was telling her kind of that same thing, and it always comes back to well, what's the ratio? How many words? If you're thinking about how many words of copied content can I put onto this page without having to write my own, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. There's no set guideline there. If you're thinking about it that way, you're probably going to get some pretty bad rankings. That's not the way to think about it. If you've got duplicate, or if you've got a piece of content that you want to curate and show to your readers, obviously because it adds some type of value to your blog for your readers, then that's okay to do. Put your own opinion on it, but I don't think it's about the ratio so much. But yeah, like you said, if you've got 2,000 words of content and only 200 of it or 500 of it even is original, then yeah, you're not going to see any rankings from that. But then again, this goes back to the real question: is this about getting rankings? And I'm not saying that all of it is or isn't, but if you're curating content, you're probably not, or you shouldn't be looking for rankings anyway. If you're curating content like that, should be a purely audience-driven thing. This is something that you're doing for your readers.
That's exactly it. And then you have to rethink your strategy of how you're going to get traffic to your website, because if you're just pulling content from other people's sites, they might as well just go to that site. You have to, maybe, okay, let's say your blog is 100% copied content, and you do all your canonical URLs correctly, all that. You're not going to rank very well, but you can still get traffic to your site through Facebook and social media, YouTube. And if you can get people on your site and commenting, that's also going to put original content on your blog. And so you kind of have to, it's not just about getting rankings in Google, you kind of have to build your brand. And then if you can do that, then by default you're going to have more content on your website anyway.
Yeah, and I don't understand the whole, having a whole website that you're pulling in curated content for. I mean, it just doesn't make no sense to me. I know there's some out there, but why? Why? It just doesn't make no sense. Especially from a marketing standpoint. If you're an affiliate marketer or anybody that's using a web property to make money, there's no reason to copy somebody else's content, not for 100% of your site. And when you're doing it like that, when you got a site and you're writing all the content, everything's original, and you come across an article you want to curate one day, I would say, especially if you're able to include the canonical URL, which we'll get to in a minute and show you how that works, then you're going to be fine. I don't think that's a big deal at all. I can still see how it's scary, and you should add your own opinion and a good bit of your own content to it, but I just don't see a need to create a website where it's everybody else's content. I don't understand that at all.
I didn't even, you bring up a good point. I didn't even think about that. From an affiliate marketing standpoint, for me, it doesn't even make sense, because if you're going to curate it, you have to put it in its original form. You can't take someone's content and put your affiliate links in there. If it's like a brand building thing, you can do it sometimes to show your authority, but as like a main strategy where you're like, okay, well, I don't want to write anything, but I want to have a website where I collect everything, your only strategy is going to be ad revenue from AdSense, I guess, or other ad networks like that. And I don't think those pay very well, not well enough to build a brand around, build a brand on that type of website.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't make no sense to me. I don't even know if AdSense. I'm not sure about that. They probably would, but I'm not sure if AdSense would allow you to set up their ads on that much duplicate content. Maybe they would, but
Like, yeah, I think you can't run PPC ads for duplicate content. But I don't know how they tell. They might manually check, or you might, if you get a complaint, you can get banned from AdWords.
yeah, that kind of blows a hole in my theory. I was thinking maybe you could do a whole website of curated content where you don't worry about SEO or anything else. You just use PPC. But if that's the case, then yeah, it's just pointless. There's no reason to do it. Not 100% of the time. I can see curating content being necessary, or not even necessary, but being desirable maybe 1% of the time. Every now and then.
Hmm.
Except for a site like recipes or maybe where you're doing quotes and stuff like that. But if you're doing a recipe site or where you're talking about famous people's quotes, just popping that recipe in a WordPress blog and hitting publish, that's never going to get you anywhere. I don't care if you got canonical links and all that stuff attached to it. Nobody's ever going to care about that. You've got to add your own voice to it.
Yeah, my suggestion has always been to, if you take a recipe from somewhere else, you can say like this recipe was inspired by this post or whatever, but put your own flair onto it. Like rewrite the ingredients so that they use someone calls it starch and you call it something else, or someone says uh, 3/4 cups, they write 3/4, and you write 3/4. You write it out, like do your own version of it. Even with that, that's just like a list thing. The list maybe you got to copy, but with the whole how to do it, that's the majority of what's written in the content. Like what you do first, next, how you structure that. You have pictures, you have videos, and I think you can get really unique doing that part of it.
Yeah, so a good example of this is I'm not like a big, I'm not like a great cook or anything like that. So my son is 14 now, so he's starting to eat me out of house and home, and he's just not living off the burritos and frozen pizza like I'd like him to. He's just wanting me to cook more. So like a year or so ago, I started really trying to get. I mean, I cook every now and then, but like basic stuff. So about a year or so ago, I started looking for recipes that were easy for me to do and stuff like that, and I found this really great cheeseburger soup recipe. Now this recipe is all over the web. It's published, and I can't even tell you how many places. And a lot of them have the list of it. Just the list of ingredients. This is how much. Blah blah blah. It's just a list. But all the ones that I found on page one of any random uh, cheeseburger soup or cheeseburger soup for that, any kind of random search, they all, even if they use that list, they all broke it down differently in their own way. Some of them used video, which was pretty smart. Um, some of them, talked about how to adjust for size, how to adjust for if your stove gets hotter than most, because like your oven or whatever, it doesn't, just because it says 450, that doesn't necessarily mean it is. Older stoves may get hotter or may not get as hot. So just all that type of different conversation was going into this one recipe. And I mean, it just made me feel like there's no excuse to copy this crap and paste it in and hit publish. Because there's so many different ways to add value to just one recipe.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm looking at these pictures. The soup looks pretty good.
Man, it's amazing, man. It is awesome, especially when it gets cold outside. We love it, dude.
I also noticed for some of these recipe blogs that what's that called? The star ratings that are in the search engines.
Yeah, it's the schema stuff.
Yeah, there's some really interesting schema stuff out there. Like I'm seeing on here, it says, so it gives it a star rating,
Hmm.
and then says the rating. So I can see 5 out of 5 stars, and then it says rating 4.8, 322 reviews, and it also says the time it takes to make it, 55 minutes.
And this is all in the SERPs?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't notice that.
That's outside of the meta description. So you have the title of the page, the URL, then you have the schema, and then you have the meta description. And then for the top reviews, under that, you have, they must be tags or other recipes on the blog or something. Like number 1, I see it also has site links to spicy cheeseburger soup, cheeseburger soup with rice.
Yeah, I see that too. Do you want to do a screen share of that real quick so we can show?
Yeah. Sorry, that's good.
Yeah, I was just, but that's another whole way that we didn't even think about before we started the show when we were writing the show notes. But using schema so you see those rating stars right there that he's talking about. Show us the links you're talking about below it.
Did you blue box me?
Yeah, I got you blue boxed.
Okay. Yeah, and so they're all different. So this one you can see it's got the rating, how many reviews, and how many minutes. And okay, that's the same one. This one has how many calories.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one below just has the time. This one says it has photos. That's the one I click. I don't know if those are all cheeseburger soups. Okay, so this must be a category, and then they've got photos in the category or something.
Yeah, no, that does all look like cheeseburger soup. What it looks like is user-generated content. It looks like they've had their users upload pictures.
Oh.
Dude, see, and that's a whole nother way that they've made this recipe unique.
Yeah, like I'm sure this calorie thing gets a lot of clicks here. The first one doesn't have it, and the second one does.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if you can, so let's say they have calories, and this one says 420 calories, and your recipe has 411.
Yeah.
Like people are gonna click on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point, and that goes back into kind of knowing what's important for your audience. So the top result there didn't really talk about calories, and the second one did, and by doing that, not only did they create a little bit of unique content, but they got clicks because they know their audience cares about that. So, and that goes into the thing where I think that Google's willing to overlook that you might have a few pieces of duplicate content because the people are clicking on it and enjoying it. So Google definitely knows when searchers are enjoying your content. So,
you know, another thing I just picked up on that I didn't realize is these images here. Didn't Google remove the author stuff from the search engines? But
yeah,
they've got pictures of soup in here.
And I think that's part of the schema.
Okay.
I think. Because I noticed some big brands, well, maybe I won't say big brands, but some like Google Plus pages actually still have their logos in search. Yeah. So, so schema is a whole nother way to make your own original content. And that's just from within the SERPs. That's not even on your blog yet.
Okay. Do you want to get into how we actually do this canonical URL thing?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting, though, man. I just learned a lot right there. Yeah, let's see. How can we do this?
I don't know if there's a whole lot to explain.
You want to show them the tag there, the code?
Yeah.
You want to just do another screen share again? There you go. So yeah, that tag there, I don't know if you guys can see it, but basically that tag goes into the head of your document. Correct me if I'm saying any of this wrong, Nathaniel, but it's very similar to the nofollow tag. So it's just, you've got your head opening tag, your link rel equals canonical, and then the word canonical is in quotes. Then you've got your href equals http :// and then your URL, your closing tags, and your closing head tag.
So the thing that was confusing to me, the first time I saw this, I didn't really understand how it was used.
I'm going to pop that in the event page real quick, too.
Okay. So this is a link that nobody sees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with a nofollow, I think there's two different ways you can do it. Like, you can do it to individual links, where you can go in your text editor. I think most people watching this are using WordPress. So you'd go into the text editor in WordPress, and then you'd pick the link that you want, and then you'd add the rel equals nofollow to that individual link. Mm-hmm. Or you can nofollow all links on the page, and that can be done with your SEO plugin. So like if you click nofollow on the all-in-one SEO pack, it's going to nofollow all of the links on the page. And I think the way it does that could be the way you said that it does a nofollow in the header. Mm-hmm. But that's something that nobody sees.
Right.
And this is also something that nobody sees. And you can't put this in the body of your content. So you can't put this in a text editor of your page. It has to go in the head or the header. I don't know which one it's called. Whatever, the head of that specific page. Now, I think what some people would want to do, which will really mess up your site, is go to your theme editor and put that in the head of your theme. But that's going to put it in your whole site. And I read some stories from people where somehow they messed it up and they redirected one. They redirected, or not redirected. They canonicalized an entire website to one URL because they did it wrong. And so they completely messed up. They basically said their whole site has moved to this one URL. And so they had to redo a bunch of stuff. So basically, for me, I'm specifically talking about cross domains. So you have two different websites. One website has the original content. One website has the copied content. In the copied content, you put this link rel equals canonical stuff into just the header of just that page. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but I thought you were talking about the whole domain. That's what you're trying to do, right? The whole domain?
No. For my stuff, I was just taking a few pieces of content.
Oh, yeah. So that's that's where I'm left a little bit confused too, because I was thinking you could go into your WordPress editor, and go to the head.php file, but I guess it doesn't lay out your individual pages there. So yeah, that would be difficult. Yeah. I don't know then.
So the other thing that was confusing to me is why people keep talking about 301 redirects when people bring up canonical URLs. Because it seems to me, if you have a website, you have an old website, and you want to take content from that and move it to a new website, you just do a 301 redirect. Mm-hmm. It sounds, which is like a permanent redirect, telling Google that this content or this website is permanently moved to another place. And if you do that, you have to do that for every single URL on your site. When you sent me that link to the Webmaster Tool thing, mm-hmm. Those Webmaster Tools, right? You sent me like 30 minutes ago.
I don't know.
Can you give me a link?
No, I don't remember
that. Someone, maybe I gave it to myself, I don't know. In Webmaster Tools, I was reading, and they made it seem like some hosts or some places made it impossible to do a 301 redirect. Maybe that would be the case of, sorry, I can't remember, I'll just call her Ho Chi Minh City. Ho Chi Minh City's case where she can't go in that website and direct the old content to the new content. And they said, preferably if you're moving a site, do a 301. But if you don't have a choice, and you can't do a 301, that the canonical version will work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and what I got out of it was like, I think for a whole site, as far you're trying to move an entire site over. I think the 301 is ideal because it's easy. It's one thing that you upload to your server or whatever. But for canonical, I think that people enjoyed it. For one, like you said, and I think it's GoDaddy that doesn't allow you to do a 301. But also that I guess the canonicals are easier to implement on a page-by-page basis, and that they get indexed faster. That's what I hear.
Okay. Speaking of indexing, Moz was telling a story where he had an old blog, and he wanted to move. It was ranked for some good terms, but he wanted to move it to a new blog. So he copied the content over, even though the original content was on the old blog, he did the canonical thing so that it said the new blog was the original content, and within a day, they had basically switched places. So he was able to get his new blog re-ranked for the stuff that he wanted to rank for just by using the canonical URL.
Yeah, that's the same thing I watched, and I'm trying to look at this right now, man, because it's now that I'm thinking about this, like, and this probably isn't great, but how do you do this on a page-by-page basis?
Well, that's the problem. All-in-one SEO pack doesn't have a thing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get into the header of an individual page. You can only get into the body. Yoast does have an option. So
does Genesis.
What's that?
So does Genesis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That doesn't help me, but that's good to know. I was thinking, all right, it's fixed, because the content that I copied over, I've been wanting to do this canonical thing, but I'm using Elegant Themes and all-in-one SEO pack, so I don't have a way to get into the head of those individual pages.
Yeah, so it seems like in that situation when you're using all-in-one SEO pack and you're using Elegant Themes or whatever, some other theme, then doing the canonical is you'll have to do all the same steps that you'd have to do with a 301 redirect, except for the code is way easier because it's right there in the comments section of our event page. It's really, really easy. Where a 301 redirect is actually a pretty intricate string of code. But other than that, I guess you just have to implement it the same way, right? Just go into your server and go to the page, pop that in your head.
I don't know. So I have done I've done permanent redirects, and I did it in my htaccess file. So I went into the file manager at HostGator, opened up my htaccess file, and I put in some code, which was actually pretty simple. It basically said it was like one line of code, 301 redirect this URL to the new URL, and that was done. And now every time someone visits the old one, it redirects to the new one. I don't know if you could do a canonical in the same way. If you could do like go to the htaccess file and do the rel equals canonical to the correct URL. From this URL to this URL. I don't know if you can do that. I'll have to look it up. So anyone who's watching, don't do it, because I don't know if it's going to screw up your site. I will look into it. The 301 is easy though. Especially if you have a plugin that does it. Apparently Genesis has some versions that you can do it right on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have Yoast, it sounds like it's pretty easy as well for the canonical. You just paste there's like a little box, and you can just paste the original. So you have the copy on there, and you just paste the original in that little canonical box, and then that's done.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another big, I mean, that's a pretty big reason to use Yoast. Um, I've been dogging on all-in-one SEO a lot lately, but they're really falling behind here. Uh, Man, I hope they implement or they introduce something like this soon to the plugin because they really need it. But yeah, other than that, man, I'm confused. It's kind of really bugging me that I cannot figure out how to do this on its own. But
Yeah, I spent like an hour looking up how to. There's no good way to ask Google. It's like
yeah,
how to do canonical URL on individual posts and pages in WordPress. Like the results that come up is just gibberish. It's basically
yeah,
it doesn't. I don't know if there's a way. And I was like, how to get into the head of individual WordPress post pages, or how to do rel equals canonical in WordPress. And yeah, I don't know. I couldn't find an answer.
I almost wonder if you couldn't pop that into the head of each page. Because you can do the no follow tag that way, but maybe not. I guess you read that you can't do that.
How do you do the no follow tag in individual pages?
Well, I mean, for individual links, you just go in and, like you said, the all-in-one SEO or any SEO plugin, I think, has a no follow and no index thing where you can just click no follow for the whole page. But if you have links on there that you do want to follow, like internal links, say you have 3 links on the page, 2 of them are internal, you don't want to no follow those, but the other one you do want to no follow. So you just go to that link and then add the rel equals no follow to that link, and click publish or update. Then you're good to go. So since this is a rel tag, I wonder if it can't just be added right there.
It can't, because that's in the body.
Okay. Oh yeah, it does say the head tag. So, but I know we're going round and round about this canonical thing. For anyone watching, you can easily get a plugin or something, or go to the server like Nathaniel was talking about, and do a 301. So it's not like if you don't know how to do this, you're totally lost. There's plenty of plugins where you can do a 301, and that.
If you're moving content, because if you do a 301, that means that people can't see one of the pages, the one that's being redirected. So if you're taking content from another site and you 301 your site to their site, they can't see your page.
Right, yeah.
That was what was pissing me off, why people kept talking about 301s when they were talking about rel equals canonical, because it's 2 different things. You 301 and suddenly the one that is redirecting you don't see anymore. As far as I understand it, maybe there's different kinds of 301s I'm not aware of. But even if it's content on your site, let's say you have one, if you're talking about tags and categories, you can't 301 those. Otherwise, you're directing it to one specific page.
Yeah. Jeez, man, I thought I had this figured out, too. Every time I think about it now, it's like a new thing. It's like, wow. Yeah, so I feel like I'm back to square one now with not understanding the canonical tag.
I think you got it. I think we just messed it up talking about 301s. To me, if you're copying content from somewhere, that's canonical. You need the rel equals canonical. If you're moving something, you need a 301. If you can't do a 301, then you do the rel equals canonical.
Right. Yeah, I get that. And with like you said, Yoast and stuff like that, it's super easy to do on a page-by-page basis. And then, there's also the no index thing that we haven't really talked much about yet, but, you can no index stuff, and people could still get to it. It's not going to be found in search results, but, I mean, it wouldn't be with the canonical anyway, I don't think. So you can no index certain stuff and still keep your follows.
I was thinking about that for my case when I was copying this content from from one site onto another site. I was thinking, why don't I just no index it? I kind of want to see what the results are. Um, but yeah, no indexing is an option. I did read in the Webmaster Tools thing that they said if you do rel equals canonical, to not no index that page, because one of them was that because it's not being indexed, Google won't see the rel equals canonical. And there was another reason, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good reason. If they can't see the canonical, then yeah, you're kind of defeating the point when you do that.
Yeah, because
But
there's lots of no index pages on sites. Like people do that all the time for PPC stuff.
yeah, yeah, I have a few that I use just for PPC, and like uh, I have like a landing page that I use sometimes for my newsletter, and I change it. I change. My URL always says /newsletter, but I'll change the title of the page a lot depending on what type of promotion I'm trying to run or whatever. So it may say, super fun tastic 60% discount one day, but the URL is the same, but that page is no indexed all the time. And that's a great way. I love doing that too. It's a great way to keep that from, being seen by Google, and you can change it anytime you want, do whatever you want to with it.
I wonder. I've always wondered if you send a lot of traffic to a no index page, if Google starts looking at it to see what's on there.
I'm sure that they do. I mean, to a point, especially if you've got links going to that page and out of that page, because like I just said, your links can still be do follow links. So they're certainly going to crawl the links going to it and out of it, or maybe just to it. Yeah, either way. So I'm sure that they know what's going on that page. They just don't index it because you've asked them not to.
Because I wonder if you could like, I'm just speculating here. I wonder if you could like run some shady stuff if you have a legit website on the outside and then you link people to some scammy stuff on the inside that's no indexed. Like Google has to take a look at that stuff somehow.
Yeah, especially if you're talking about running PPC, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, just in general, let's say I want to have like I want to have an internet marketing website, and on the front, I'm like, oh, this is totally legit. Like, let's learn how to make money, blah, 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 I'm a nice guy. And then I link people to, like, some scam software. I don't know if Google, can they take action on the indexed stuff if my no index stuff is bad?
Oh, I see what you're saying there. Yeah, that's kind of a different question because, like you said, you're linking to it so they can follow that link. But can they take action on? Wow. Yeah, I don't know about that. That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to play with that. I really want to know. I'm sure somebody's got some documentation about that somewhere.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of that, have you heard of the dark web?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've heard of it. I have no idea what it is.
I don't really understand the logistics of it, but it's basically stuff that can be accessed on the internet, but it's not indexed in search engines. And you have to, like, the reason I was thinking about it is have you ever heard of is it Aphex or Apex Twins?
No, I've never heard of that.
It's this group, music group, two guys, I think, and they make, like, electronic music. They released an album, but they only released it on the dark web. So the only way you can get the album is you have to use this encryption software have you ever heard of Tor?
I've heard of it, yeah, but again, I don't know
You have
what
to
it
use
is.
Tor to access the dark web and download this album. This was like have you heard of the Silk Road?
No.
The Silk Road was like this illegal drug trade stuff going on the internet, and it was like you could access basically anything you want and worse stuff. through the internet, but there was no way to track it. I guess there was a way because I think they ended up having like some big raid and taking down the site or something. But it was all ran through the dark web, and you had, because everything was done with encryption, and so people were behind like IP changers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's the same place, and these guys, I think one of them is releasing an album on the dark web. It just reminded me because of the no index stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk right now about Facebook dark posts. I don't know if that's anything to do with any of that, but and I've been hearing a lot of stuff about like private messages and stuff like that being able to have an effect on your rankings and stuff like that. So I know that's kind of off in another direction from what you're talking about, but it's pretty interesting. So really what you're saying is there's a whole nother web out there that we don't know about.
Yep.
Yeah, I can believe it, man. Crazy stuff going on.
What is dark posts? I also read something about that. Is that
some type of Facebook ad type of thing? I've been meaning to look into it. Maybe we'll talk about this next week because it's a pretty big deal. But I haven't looked into it yet because I know once I start learning about it, I won't stop until I figure it out and then start spending money on it. But it's some type of way to create a highly targeted, I guess, Facebook ad campaign that's not published or something like that, man. Anything I say about it is really going to be just a bunch of BS because I really don't know. But I know big advertisers are using them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that this week.
Yeah, Facebook dark post. Gary Vaynerchuk's big on them right now.
One thing before I forget. So I did this. I did copy the content over. It was about 5 posts, reviews, and it was back in the day when I created multiple sites in one niche, and I had about 20 sites to start with, and I kind of let most of them die off, except for these 2 sites. And since they're reviewing the same products, I spent like a couple hours rewriting all the posts for all the main reviews for one of them. And I was like, I don't feel like rewriting the post for the second one as well because it's the same content essentially. So I just copied them over. Mm-hmm. So I did that last week, and the next day, which makes me think it's not even related, because the very next day, the blog went from about 200 visitors to 150 to 130. And yesterday it had 75. So from last week to this week, the visitors have been cut in half. It looks like maybe it's starting to recover today. So yesterday I did only 75 visitors, and for the whole day. And today at like mid-afternoon, like 2 o'clock, I was already at 60. So maybe it's starting to recover. But and the funny thing was, this is where the original content was published. So I copied it to the second site, which I would have thought that would have natively affected that site.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is the one that's been negatively affected. Not necessarily because of this content thing. I've also been doing other things to it as well, so it could have been something else I did, but it was just, those are my results so far.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about that. Also, I'll give you a quick update too on this case study blog, and then we're going to have to get out of here. But I wrote a review on Big Money Blogging, which is this new case study blog that I'm kind of getting attached to. I did a fetch with Google because I couldn't get it indexed after publishing it, sharing it to Google Plus, which is what I usually do to get a post indexed. Didn't work. I did a fetch with Google, didn't get it indexed still, and then I changed from Elegant Themes to Genesis, and it got indexed. First page. Almost within the hour, I want to say. So maybe it didn't have anything to do with the theme change, but that's the only thing I did differently. So we're talking about 3 or 4 days in between the time where I waited for Fetches Google and all that stuff to work.
That's weird.
Pretty interesting.
Did you, when you created the site in the beginning, did you check that box, discourage search engines from indexing?
No.
Because I've had trouble with that before. If I tick that, it takes forever to get reindexed. But that sounds like you didn't do that.
No, I try not to do that. But yeah, I mean, it was just a simple theme change from Genesis to Elegant, which I've always had my suspicions about Elegant themes, and this doesn't really mean that, but I think it could be a big factor.
I think it's stupid that Elegant Themes doesn't give you a child theme, that you have to go out and either make it or pay someone to make it.
Yeah, I think that they consider that custom CSS panel as kind of their child theme thing, which kind of sucks. You know what I'm talking about? Their custom CSS? Yeah. So, I think that's why. And plus, I mean, they're dirt cheap, so I doubt that they have the money to be able to do. Actually, I don't know what it would take to do that, so I really don't know. But I was looking at them today, man. They are so cheap compared to everyone else. They are insanely cheap. I don't know how they're staying in business.
Yeah, I think, what are they, $69 a year now?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Oh, that reminds me. Genesis is having a sale. I think you can get, I wonder if it's still on. I don't know if I want to spend another $100 this month. I think it's like $200 or $300 for all of their themes for like a lifetime subscription.
Wow. That's a good deal.
Somehow every month something comes up. I'm like, all right, I'm going to save money this month. And then it's like, I got to renew this subscription. I found some plugin I wanted. Or now it's, Genesis is having a sale. I'm like, I don't know. I could use every theme Genesis ever made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Press whatever.
I don't think I'll ever use another theme, man. Not on the site that I'm serious about. I will never use another theme besides Genesis.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. My new niche website that I made is using the same one as One More Cup of Coffee.
Yeah, they make a strong theme, man. I like it.
I've noticed a couple people switching lately.
Really?
Yeah, just people from WA that I associate with. See that little G pop up. It's funny. So many people have that damn Genesis favicon, and I always send them a little note. I'm like, did you know that your favicon is still the original Genesis one? Here's instructions on how to change it. It's just something I notice. And they're like, okay, yeah, I'll take care of that one of these days. And they never do.
Well, I tried to change mine. I can't change it. I actually did it the way I read I was supposed to, but it didn't work. So, but it bugs me too. I see like everybody's got that. The whole web's going to be covered with those eventually.
Did you change the code?
Yeah, I went in. I can't remember how I did it now, but I went in.
Where'd you put it?
It was in. I think it's like favicon.ico or something like that. I can't remember.
Which file did you put it in?
That's what I think that was the file I put it in. It's been a while back, so I can't really remember.
I don't know if there's a file for that, but basically it's in the functions.php. You just paste, I think it's functions.php, and then you paste the code in there, and then you put the URL of your favicon. But now that I say that, I don't know if I'm right or not. So.
Yeah, I'll get around to it. One of those things.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm going to get out of here. It's been a great show. Hopefully we answered some of your questions and put some of your worries to rest about duplicate content.
Oh, the Q&A app is working, by the way.
Huh?
Yeah, it must have been a temporary glitch.
Oh, it is working. Wow.
It wasn't working at the beginning for anyone that was worried about that. I see all your questions lined up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was a temporary thing, but it did it last week too, didn't it? It said you
Yeah.
can't. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's time for us to start using the new Hangouts, man.
Yeah.
I'll have to dig into that and figure them out this week.
Alrighty. I will see you next week then, Chris.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. Rest of the week and a good weekend. See you.
Later.